So over the past 5 years, I've noticed a trend when I've been speaking before colleges. And the trend is instead of people raising their hands during the presentation, they line up after it's over. And this started happening only really about 5 years ago. I got very curious. So I started asking students, because that was a really great question, but it would have been interesting for the group to hear what you said. And it was a really good point you made. And the comment that I get from students repeatedly now is, oh, I would never ask that out loud. I don't want to say the wrong thing. If I said the wrong thing, I'd be canceled. It could destroy my career. It could destroy my social life here. Another student said to me, I've learned the lesson at this school. Keep your head down, keep your mouth shut, and give the professors what they want and graduate. School, which used to be a place to learn and grow and make mistakes, to reveal yourself, is now a place where a lot of students feel they have to conceal themselves. And it's not just on college campuses, it's our whole country. There's a real problem with the inability to share. A couple weeks ago, I was doing one of my cultural translation workshops, and after the training, I had told this story about college students. And one of the older gentlemen in the room raised his hand and he said, can I talk to you afterward? I'm one of the kids that wants to talk afterward. So he waited, and as other people kind of lounged around, he waited to see everybody left the class. And he said, that story about the kids keeping their mouth shut, I just want to let you know, I sat down with my kids and I told them this. I told them, never share what you really think. It could destroy your career. Am I part of the problem? That's what he was asking. So this is parents teaching kids. America has a candor crisis. We no longer feel the ability to be candid, and it's getting worse. And what happens when we don't feel comfortable being candid is that we actually just start to withdraw from each other. And so what we're experiencing in our culture right now is a loneliness crisis, a polarization crisis, and a lot of it is driven by our inability to feel comfortable sharing who we are with each other. It's not exactly like we're lying to each other, but we're very careful what we share with who to protect ourselves. And I believe that the only way out of this crisis for our country are for people like here, our community at Church of the Holy City and our dialogue and so forth, is to learn to improve our candor skills, how we can be more candid with one another. So today I'm continuing my series on the 15 commitments of conscious leadership and its intersection with spiritual growth. And this week I'm dealing with the fourth commitment, which is candor. It says, I commit to saying what is true for me. I commit to being a person whom others can express themselves with candor. And on the flip side, when it's not true, we would say, I commit to withholding my truth, facts, feelings, and things I imagine. I speak in ways that allow me to manipulate an outcome. I commit to not listening to another person. So we're going to focus on candor. Well, what is candor? Most of us, when we think of candor, we think it's just telling the truth. But candor is a step deeper. It's a step of self-revelation. It's openness. It's going beyond the truth. If I said that Church of the Holy City is a church that was built in the 1890s, that would be true. But if I tell you it's a place where I can feel especially close to God when I'm spiritually praying, that's me opening up. I'm going a step further than just the facts about the building. I'm sharing myself with you. And I probably would be careful who I would share that with. But candor takes the conversation deeper and it reveals who we really are. Now, we also sometimes think candor, I'm good at that. I can tell people like it is. I can just tell them the truth. I'm a straight shooter. Well, sometimes that actually can be bullying and it can be aggressive and it can be quite toxic. Candor is when you're really hoping to reveal yourself, and you're hoping to be a person that others feel they can trust you and they can also reveal themselves. So the question then is, this candid crisis we're having, where does it come from? Why are we so uncomfortable revealing ourselves? And you can think about that for a second about yourself. Why don't you feel comfortable sharing yourself? Well, there are a lot of reasons. I would say the most common reason that people tell me, that, when we really kind of analyze it, is we're not able to control the outcome. different things could happen. If I tell people what I'm really feeling, it might go in a different direction. I know how things are now, and if I share some information about myself, it could shake things up, it could change everything, and I don't want that to happen. Another reason people don't like to do it is they don't want to sound selfish when they're sharing how they feel about things. And the reality is, particularly on college campuses, but through our whole culture, social media, cancel culture is very real. So people worry that if I share my view and it doesn't land well, I might start a fight, but worse, I could get rejected. And if people really knew what I think, they might completely block me out. So the fear of being candid for many people is that it's going to lead to conflicts, and our goal is to keep the peace. So that's some of the reasons why people refrain from candor. In our hyper-charged culture war and political war, we've seen people lose careers for being candid, and we're like, okay, I saw that, that's enough, I'm keeping my mouth shut. And so the candor crisis continue. Now, should we be candid in all situations with all people at all times? Well, the answer is no. Candor really is a gift that you give someone, and you really should be checking in with them to see if it's someone that you feel you have a degree of trust that you can do it. So it's not a good in all situations. You have to be careful at times. But if you can start a candid conversation with someone, you will be amazed at their trust level will go up, and they will start being candid back with you. So it does seem like in some ways being candid is dangerous and keeping our mouth shut is safe. But there are punishments when we conceal ourselves. When I came to Washington to do politics in the 90s, I know, a long time ago, right? Before many of you were born, I was educating on gay issues and AIDS issues. And it was very common when I went to Capitol Hill that people would tell me, this is the 90s, that this is the first gay person they'd ever met. And the reality was their staff were gay, the leaders in the party were gay, everybody was gay on the Hill. But it was kind of funny because people would like pull their newspapers up as I walked into the office and kind of put their heads down and all that because I recognized them. But the point was they decided it wasn't safe for them to reveal, so they concealed. And it's interesting, the AIDS crisis of all things, terrible, terrible thing, right? But had it not been for the AIDS crisis forced a reveal, okay? It forced people out. Think of Rock Hudson as a very prominent person that nobody knew was gay until he had AIDS. So the AIDS crisis propelled people revealing, sometimes against their will, but that's what happened. And that actually, the success of the gay rights movement is predicated on the reveal of the AIDS crisis. People in the gay and lesbian community to this day that I know from back in those days who are still in the closet, I can tell you it is not pretty. It's not a pretty picture when you conceal part of yourself. It takes a toll. And people will numb themselves with alcohol, drugs, sexual addiction, whatever else they have to do to deal with the fact that they can't tell people who they really are. It takes a toll. Now, recently in one of the trainings I was doing, a participant said, I feel like I'm in the closet. He wasn't talking about being gay. He was just saying, I just don't feel I can share who I am at work. And he said, I'm in a new age closet. So maybe that's a new phrase. That was his phrase. I'm in a new age closet. I just don't feel I can share in this age who I really am. I'm terrified. The other part is when we don't have the courage to reveal, we allow voices that are very dominant in the culture, particularly combative, particularly cultural entrepreneurs to dominate. We turn the discussion over to them and they take over. And it looks even worse when we watch from a distance. So when we conceal, we lose our integrity. We start saying things we don't agree with, really. We retweet things to get praise from our crowd. But deep down, we know we don't believe it. We begin to see ourselves as frauds. Pretending to believe things just to get along with the crowd is an incredible energy drain, and the lack of integrity undermines us. So it is a tension. The key for the future is to create organizations where it can be safe to be candid. And our church Church of the Holy City and our discussion, we could begin to pattern that, and I think we do. And I think that's that might be one of the most important teachings that we've come up with. Another really dangerous example of not being candid is that, quick example, military, Jose, who works in security, can back me up or contradict me later, but during the lead up to the Iraq War, it was learned after the fact that they were only getting information from the people who agreed with them, that there was weapons of mass destruction. So people learned within the government to conceal their views. And so we actually went to war on something that wasn't accurate because we found out people were taught not to reveal. So think about that. Failure to reveal can lead to a war. But probably the biggest downside of withholding our true thoughts is that we really can't build deep relationships with others. We live in a very superficial world with everyone. We're always walking on eggshells, and no one's sharing how they feel. We really never know each other. So, candor is also a spiritual practice for us. At its core, it's a choice between love and fear. Will I reveal my true self or conceal my true self? That's love and fear. Swedenborg has a very cool concept he calls ruling love, which is, he says that we're motivated by a ruling love, something that really governs us. And we're in tension all the time between love and fear. And that love energy that we feel is, in our tradition, from the angels. They're working with us. That's heavenly energy, and that's love, and that's reveal. But there's also hellish energy around us, and that is about fear, anxiety, be afraid, and conceal. And we're in that tension all the time, and we're seeking to be more love and less fear. Jesus himself was a great personification of being candid. When he's teaching us in many different places to love our neighbor, he's asking us to reveal our hearts so we can truly get to know each other. But Jesus also told us that we don't reveal to everyone. The religious leaders of his time are constantly battling him in the scripture, and he's constantly battling them. And they're always asking these questions, and he does not reveal because their questions are motivated from evil. They're trying to trick him and to get him arrested and to punish him. He knows the game. So he doesn't reveal. And I think that's an important lesson for us too. We do have to realize the motivations sometimes of others and not put, as another verse in the Bible, do not put your pearls before swine's feet. It's not always appropriate. And Jesus also told us this lesson that we have to be like little children to enter the kingdom of heaven. One of the great things about kids that we love is in their innocence and their awe is that kids don't conceal. They reveal. We laugh about it, but we learn through life as we get older to start concealing. But kids don't have that. Spiritually, we do have to be more like children to reveal ourselves. And Jesus was candid with his followers with good news and bad. He said, if you're going to follow me, and this goes for all of us today, it could be there will be tough times. It's a challenge. It's not always going to be an easy ride. I send you as sheep among wolves, he says at one point. So he says, I'm not sugarcoating it. I'm being candid. And in our own relationships with God, God really requires us to be candid. I've had people very often through time say to me, I'm really, really pissed at God. Usually it's often around a death. You lose somebody, and of course you're furious. And for many people, their faith is all about, it's at some level, I know my faith is going to protect me from bad things happening. It does not. And so then they'll just say, I have doubts. I just can't believe anymore. And my response is, you know what? God can handle anything that you say. And the most important thing is just be honest when you pray. Just reveal yourself. Just be who you are. And that's cursing at God or saying, I'm pissed. Trust me, God can handle it. What God cannot handle and won't work for our spiritual growth is when we pretend to have a relationship and we pretend with our prayers and words and just have a fake kind of superficial conversation. So even in your relationship, in your prayer life, be candid. That's a great place to share your deepest secrets. I should also say that candid doesn't mean that you're going to tell negative things to people either. It's like, it's always a heavy thing. One place where we are not candid is we're often not candid in telling people good things. And that's just a fun exercise you could do this week. Find somebody who you really appreciate and tell them. We do not tell people that we appreciate them. I know for men, so I'll speak for men. Maybe this is a little gender centered. I think a lot of men don't want to appraise other people because I've noticed this. They don't want to look like they're not in control or in power. Because I've had so many male and female coaching clients, and I'll go out to dinner and the female coaching clients will be like, Rich is amazing. He's great. He did this. It changed my life. The men won't even say they have me as a coach. Won't even want to acknowledge, because they don't want to seem, I guess, weak. But I think showing people that you appreciate them, that's a form of candor too that we often ignore. So if creating a culture of candor, and particularly here at the church, is important, how do we do it? Well, one thing to test yourself, if you're good at this candid stuff, is, do people feel comfortable sharing deep parts of themselves with you? Are you someone that people feel they can reveal to? Or do they have to conceal? Some people create spaces for candor and others don't. We need to become a place where people can be candid and say what they want. And how do we do that? One very powerful thing that we can do is we can become better listeners. Very often when people are sharing, we will say, we don't listen to hear what they're saying, we listen for ourselves. And when we do that, when we listen for ourselves to somebody else, we actually shut them down. It's like a red light goes up. So very often, this is something I'm often guilty of. People will share a problem, and before they can almost finish, I have a solution. That's not what they were not coming to me for advice in this particular case. I've actually shut down the story because I've now tried to solve it. Another one is the comparison. When someone says, hey, I just went on this great camping trip, it was really awesome, and then you come back with, oh, I was just in Miami Beach. Miami Beach, we've now played this game. I've just cut off whatever you were trying to say. So when we try to fix people, when we try to match or talk about ourselves, we can actually cut off the conversation. The worst thing that we can do is listen to argue, okay? When someone says, well, this is my perspective, and they say, well, I completely disagree. That is wrong, wrong, wrong. Trust me, you have just shut down. They will not conceal again. You have just shut down that information. And we can do that in subtle ways too, how we respond to people who have different views from us. Good way to test it. If you like, this is one that's been coming up in all my dinner conversations, maybe yours too, but take an issue like the war in Gaza that's going on right now. If you don't have people who represent both sides in that discussion, it's probably that you've edited out people from your life who don't agree with you. And the people who don't agree with you have learned to keep their mouth shut while they're around you on that issue. This is true in politics too. So what we do is we end up with people around us that just reinforce our filter bubble. And we shut down anybody who doesn't disagree. Understanding doesn't mean agreement. It just means I'm listening. I want to hear your perspective. And we should be particularly listening for minority viewpoints, when people share something that's not in the large group. I think what's been very cool here at Church of the Holy City is in the discussions that we've been having, I noticed that we are moving in the direction of candor. People appreciate each other and candidly say it. People reveal challenges. Sometimes people ask for advice and we'll give advice. But you notice we don't debate it. People have different viewpoints. We don't have to get into a debate. And I think that's how we can build trust. We can do that here at the church, and we can do that in our lives. So I'm going to share with you a candid thought that I probably wouldn't have shared. And then I want you to just give me your reaction. And okay, so here's my candid thought for the week. That I literally had this thought this week that I probably wouldn't share. So we're selling this building, and we're moving. And I dread it. I really deeply dread doing it. I spent years fixing the building. I love coming to this building. I come here every day. And so the whole thought of it just gives me a sense of dread and exhaustion. Okay? So that's my reveal. That's me being candid. Now take a minute and think as you heard it, what your reaction to my comment was. I'm going to give you some common responses. We can see later if these might be right, but some people would say, oh, well, maybe we shouldn't sell. Or another person would say, well, we'll get someone to manage it. Or, oh my gosh, if you're the leader and you don't want to do it, I'm bailing. Or, I know, moving is a royal pain. I get it. Or, I love the building too, let's keep it. I have no idea what you're talking about because I'm new to this church. So now I'm kind of concerned. What are you talking about? So all those reactions, you find that what most of those reactions were fixing, arguing, or sharing about ourselves. They could have shut down the conversation. So people are not sharing to get a solution all the time. They're just sharing. And if we can let people just share what they have to share, we can let the conversation go deeper. And when we allow for more candid conversations, we'll build candid groups. Really candid, people who have that ability that everybody says, boy, people just open up to you right away. They're usually good listeners. They're repeating back to people what they've heard. They're summarizing. Their body language is in it. Their eyes are in it. And they don't cut it off. They just go with the green lights. And they just allow the person to share. People are desperate to be heard right now in our country. And they have no place to be heard. So when we fix or argue or anything along those lines, when we put a red light up and we stop the candid conversation. So churches traditionally have been terrible places to create candid cultures, I have to be honest. Because we've told people at churches, you got to say these words, you can't say the wrong thing, you've got to wear this, wrong clothes, wrong language, you don't believe the right things. Oh, you have to believe these things. Just to let you know, this is what we believe. In so doing, churches have shut down candid conversations for the younger generation in many cases. And churches are also tough because we all like to be nice. And sometimes we think we're not hurting people's feelings, we are candid. I've had many people come to this church, come and go over time. And in all the years I've been preaching, and this is like my 8th year, nobody has ever left and said, can I sit down with you and tell you why I'm leaving? I'm leaving, I didn't like your sermon, I don't like you, you're a jerk, your sermons are boring. Nobody's emailed me that. Through gossip, I hear it from other people, and people are going to come, people are going to go, it's fine. But it's interesting, why don't they reveal? Because most cases they don't want to hurt my feelings. But I'm sort of left like, I have no idea. So I'm hoping that Church of the Holy City can be a place and a hub for conversations full of candor, and people can be their authentic selves. So if you're willing to take a stab at this week, I'm just going to give you a couple steps, and we can put these into the newsletter if you like. But think about something that you want to be candid with someone that you really have not done, okay? Something you would like to reveal. Someone you have enough of a relationship that it's worth the risk. And then think about the gap between what you say out loud and what you really believe. And then just ask yourself, why am I afraid of sharing this? What costs are involved? What are the costs? There'd be some really good reasons why you don't. But then if you're willing to, you could say, am I willing to give this a shot and reveal? If you go through those steps, it'll help you realize that there's fears below the surface that are driving you. And that if you address those fears, you may decide to have a candid conversation, you may decide not to. But at least going through that exercise. And then when you do share with people, resist the desire to be right. Being candid is not being right. It's just a way to reveal yourself. You're not trying to convince people. And we live in a culture that's all about arguing. And also speak truth with an open heart. A few weeks ago, Roxanne shared this phrase, and it really stuck with me. I've mentioned it a couple times, but she just talked about this cancer support group she was in, Gilda's group, I think it was. And the phrase was, come as you are. And it was a cancer survivor group. And I said, let that be our mission statement. Because what I love about it, it implies that when you reveal your true self here, as you are, you won't be judged. So we could make Church of the Holy City a place for candid conversations. And we can practice this art, and then we can take it to our country and to the world, because we are in a crisis of concealment that has very dangerous consequences. I want to close with the verse from Scripture today that so beautifully said it. Instead, speak the truth in love. We will grow to become, in every aspect, the mature body of Him who is the head, that is Christ. Amen.